Play fake. Beathard sets up deep in the pocket. Goes down the field for Smith.
Has some time. Touchdown!
Steps up, does it. Pass is caught. That'll move the sticks. Tyrone Tracy. There he goes. Tracy. Towards the end zone for the Iowa touchdown.
Welcome back to the podcast, Michigan and Friends. Thanks.
Michigan and Friends? Michigan
Oh my
and Friends.
God.
Big Ten breakfast. How you guys doing today?
Good.
Recap episode Sunday.
I'm a grown man. Okay. I have a career. My job affects people's daily lives. I have a good woman. Great place to live. No state taxes. But yesterday I felt like an 11-year-old who just watched his favorite team lose in heartbreaking fashion. I took a depression nap, just to clear my head. There's so many things going. Like, I know you're not, well, we can talk about it later, but it was a rough evening for Hawkeye Nation. I think the after game call-in show lasted 4 hours. 4.5 hours. Yeah, a lot of people had lots of things to say. And we are now officially 19.5 points per game average. So in order to hit 325,
You got average. Yeah.
We do have
33.5.
Yeah. So
That's obtainable. I mean, yeah.
but how's your guys' games? Huh? How'd that go? We can talk about that for a minute.
Go ahead, May. How did Nebraska do yesterday?
So we won, or they won. Nebraska won, beat Northwestern. I had to watch the game on my phone. Did our annual boys golf trip at my buddy's their lake house in Kentucky. They're all SEC fans, so we had to watch Tennessee get embarrassed by Alabama. But I had Nebraska, in my lap watching them. From what I watched, our defense looked really good. I think they had 8 sacks. Harburg looked a little turnover prone. He had a really nice touchdown to our true freshman wide receiver, Malachi Coleman. But everything I was hearing post game and through Twitter was it didn't look real sharp on offense, which is kind of what we've been doing. It hasn't looked really clean, and now it's everyone's starting to wonder, do we go back to Jeff Sims? So I don't know if we can have that conversation, but hey, we got that revenge W from Northwestern. And we're 4-3. We're moving right in the right direction.
I don't know if you noticed both of our facial expressions, but we were making. I just realized it when I looked at the camera. Me and Shane were making similar facial expressions. It was the smile of, I really don't care about Nebraska football.
Well, you should, and you should. You should care. You should care. Because once again, these crappy I teams in the Big Ten figure out to lay us all down. Illinois blew it against Wisconsin.
Yeah, it was not
Cooper
a good
DeJean wants to throw a fake fair catch.
Oh, don't you even dare call that a fake fair catch. Don't you even. Do we talk about that game right now? Because I got a few things.
Nobody really wants to talk about that Michigan ass whooping.
The only two tidbits I have to say. There were 6 Big Ten games yesterday, right? Would you believe that our game had the most points scored and our other opponent didn't even score?
It's
49-0. Michigan State's garbage. I knew this was going to happen. Hilarious. I'm happy this is our first shutout of the season. We technically even had more points scored than both of your games combined.
Yep.
You guys could together, if you all four of the teams that played yesterday with your team scored 48, we scored 49.
Yeah.
So just hilarious. I found it every time, even after the first touchdown, I just kind of started laughing every time we would score again. It was just comical. It was great.
Would you
Unfortunately,
get
they put up
abs?
50.
Did you get abs after
Yeah,
laughing that
I now
much?
have an 8-pack. Yeah. I was a little disappointed we didn't put up 50 on them, but it was a shutout, so I'll take it. And just absolutely hilarious. I think we have Purdue next week, so that should be hilarious as well. And then we get Penn State. And honestly, as a Michigan fan, we'll get to the PSU Ohio State game, but I was very happy with that game as well because neither of those teams are as great as I thought they were going to look, and I think we can beat both of them. Defensively, they both looked well. Offensively, they
quarterbacks. It shows that they have.
AJ's better than both of their quarterbacks, and I think that, and like I said, we'll get to them because that was technically the game of the day in all of college football probably yesterday. So,
what about Michigan State putting Hitler on the old scoreboard and blaming it on trivia? They were playing trivia. Was it before the game started?
Yeah, it was before the game started. Yeah. So, I don't know what kind of culty worshipy things that they have going over there in East Lansing, but that's on them, man. I don't know. I just know that if I was a Michigan State fan and if I was what happened to them yesterday was not consensual. That was we took it to him.
You took it.
Sorry. Yeah. You know who probably was happy about that result? Mel Tucker. I bet he was pretty thrilled to see that result.
Yeah.
All right, enough about Michigan State. I have no more words for Michigan. We had a great game. We have Purdue again next week. We'll really get to us when we play Penn State. I'm assuming we'll have a similar result next week.
I think. I just personally.
I want this next month. That's when Shane's team matters. Is in November.
Yeah, well, us in Georgia are just going to happily sit in 1 and 2 spots for a while, and then once we get to play Penn State, we'll see what happens there. And then it might just be like next year or last year where we beat Penn State and then everyone just waits for the final week of the season. So, okay, what about this Rutgers Indiana game? May, did you listen to our show at all that we did yesterday, or have you heard it all?
No, sorry.
Both Corey and I said Rutgers was only favored by 6, and we both thought that was insulting. That Rutgers was only favored by 6 over Indiana, and sure enough, they won by 17. So,
yep.
I figured Rutgers was going to roll over Indiana like that. That game was pretty boring right after the first or second quarter. So
yeah,
did you guys watch that at all?
I didn't. I watched the Penn State Ohio State game.
Yep,
because I wanted to. There's been so much hype on that, and Penn State doesn't. They can't ever get over that hump. They get hyped up. They always get to that 6-7 spot, and then Ohio State just puts them right back where they belong every time it happens to Penn State. And now, like Michigan, Penn State doesn't seem like a challenge at all.
No. You know what it's like? It's like, growing up and you get that opportunity to sit at the big table at Thanksgiving, but then like you drop your plate or you spill your juice and they're like, go back over there to the small table. You're not ready for the big table.
Maybe next year.
That's Penn State.
Maybe next year.
Yeah.
That personal experience, May, like 3 years in a row. You're like,
So I did also, So that game was pretty boring. Rutgers, Indiana, and another one. Corey's going to be unhappy about this one, but I did have a call yesterday, and I said Minnesota would beat Iowa, and I said Wisconsin would beat Illinois. And it would be the turning point for Wisconsin on the season, and then they would start competing for that Big Ten.
And for 3 quarters, I was right. And for 3 quarters, I was right.
And now, if you look at the standings today, Wisconsin does lead the Big Ten West.
Doesn't matter. Doesn't matter.
Denial drill.
Is Illinois getting better, or what's going on with
them? No, they're getting better.
That's 2 weeks in a row that they've
I
I'd
think they're
start
getting
watching
better.
out for them
I
next
think they're
year.
getting better, and then also I think two things can be true. I think they're getting better, and Wisconsin is just not as good as we thought they were at the beginning of the season. But I do think Illinois is getting better. Yeah. How good they could get though is probably still not enough.
I still don't like their quarterback for Illinois. I don't think he's good enough to make them relevant. So
I mean, if you could
Can't
take
have ours.
any of the 14 starting quarterbacks in the Big Ten, who do you take to lead your team? If you're building a team from scratch and you have the pool of all 14 current teams, what quarterback is your starter tomorrow?
are they like? So if I took JJ, I'd have to take him as a junior. I couldn't like.
You take current, and
Oh,
you're
yeah.
only doing it for one season.
Oh, well,
Out of these 14 quarterbacks, who are you taking?
Yeah, who's your starter for one season to try to win a one-season championship?
You gotta take JJ.
yeah, it makes the most. He's the most experienced quarterback in the Big Ten this year.
The Big Ten does not. They're kind of down on QBs this year. It's an odd
It's
group.
the obvious is either JJ or Talia because those two have the most experience. The other ones are redshirt freshmen or third string or guys that don't know how to throw the ball when they're 6'5". They throw it like they're 5'8". So I mean, it's what I mean. Like you got your options. Your options are kind of limited. There's a 1A obviously. And then there's like a 2C, and that's
So you're telling me you
below
wouldn't
the-
take Deacon Hill from Iowa?
to write the stats down on the sideline. Yeah.
I was proud. We had more than 6
So
completions today. So
What?
to it. I know.
Why did Iowa lose? What happened there?
I brought some clips. We're gonna break down this loss a little bit.
All right.
Is it true that they didn't even average
A yard.
a yard
Yeah.
on the ground running? It was like
0.9. It's
Yeah.
0.9 yards a kick. Yeah. Yep. It was obviously like we have become desensitized at this by week 8, right? It's like walking through Verdun in World War I on day 6. It's just so many bodies. You don't care. You're high-fiving them. So this is sort of how, we're like
Technically,
we
sorry,
take pride in beating teams who beat us in every aspect of the game. So that seems to be our goal this year. And eventually these games happen and they bite you in the ass. And so first of all, I don't know if you guys watched the flow of this game at all. I don't know if any of you watched the Iowa game.
Well, I was keeping tabs on it. I wasn't watching, in the full essence of the football game.
what I think is amazing about this game is the only touchdown was scored by Iowa. I have a breakdown.
And that was 3 penalties in a row that got us to the point where we scored.
Yeah.
I mean,
I have a breakdown here. So before you get into your thing, here we go. Field goal, punt, 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 field goal, punt, punt, fumble, missed field goal, punt, punt, touchdown, punt, field goal, punt, punt, fumble, field goal, punt, 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 field goal, punt, 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 interception. And that was the game.
Yep.
That's a wild game.
And it was weird because Iowa starts off in strong I formation, runs a play action. Deacon Hill throws a nice little pass over the middle for I think like 12, 13 yards. But that's their first series, so they have it scripted and it led to only a field goal. So I was worried at that point, right? Because I'm like, well, we needed 7 there. And then, Deacon Hill's got like, he looks and acts a lot like Ben Roethlisberger until he throws the ball. Like he looks like last year before Ben Roethlisberger retired, where there's just like if he tried to throw anything beyond 5 yards, it was just you're like, who is
It
that?
hurts.
Yeah. Yes. That is our quarterback situation right now. So like, and when he runs, it's awkward. He had our biggest run of the game with, I think it was 7 or 9 yard run. So that's not good. And so and then the pocket was collapsed all the time. Either way though, there was a bunch of missed opportunities going up to that game. a lot of potential interceptions from tip balls. I mean, Iowa's defense was trying to put themselves in a position. And I, you guys aren't Iowa fans, but there's something to be said when the lights come on at Kinnick. There's there's a Kinnick magic that happens. Michigan's experienced it when in the mid 2000s, every time you guys thought you had a hope, Iowa would beat you. I don't know if you remember that. You might have blocked.
Listen, I love those yellow Iowa uniforms they had.
Really?
Those were sexy. I like the yellow. I thought that was nice.
I don't ever blame the refs for an outcome of a game. Like, I feel like there's a bunch of things that happen, but this one stung.
Kirk got him. He got in their ass too at the post game. Is what I was reading.
Well, you guys watch this play. You tell me if this is a fucking fair catch, right?
This against the Michigan State Spartans a couple of weeks ago. He iced the game on a punt return.
Mark Crawford steps up to the 5. High end over.
I mean, first of all, to even get into this position was great, with a minute some left, and to pin him back, instead of going for it on 4th and inches, they decided to take this route, use 2 of their timeouts. PJ Fleck is an idiot coach. Instead of running the ball and getting this clock down to more like 30 seconds, he throws and then he runs, and then he's forced to throw again. So, and now here's Cooper. You see him down there, right above the Tiger Hawk symbol. He's pointing at his blocker there. Ball's coming down, and he's waving stomach high to keep away.
Not going to touch it.
And that's it. That's all he does.
Yeah.
As he's running to the ball, you can't call a fair catch if you're not close to the ball.
Until now.
This is Kinnick magic right here. Look at all them.
Here he comes. Cooper DeJean cuts it back. 25. He's got a chance. He scores.
Kirk McNart watching this.
For them to call this back because they say it's a subsection of the rule and as a fair catch because you made a motion with your free hand is complete horse dick.
Well, this is
complete horse dick.
Yeah, they got fucked over on that.
This is what Kirk Ferentz says, and I thought this was interesting because it gives a little context to the discussions he was having with the refs before they went to instant replay to after.
It's a tough thing. Anytime you take one on the chin, that's hard. We'll get back on our feet tomorrow, go back to work, and in this circumstance, we've got an extra week here to figure things out a little bit and see if we can't find a little better remedy, and really no different than we did a month ago. So that's kind of where we're at right now. And should I go to officiating or not? You want me to hit that one? So, okay. So I'll start out by saying whatever I do say, hopefully if the Big Ten deems it necessary to find me, hopefully they'll maybe find in their hearts to send it to a good cause, like the Children's Hospital would be a good place to start. But it was a peculiar game, and the fact that we had 6 replays today, I can't remember a game, maybe we've had some with that amount. That's interesting. And really the last play is just, it's a little bit tough. So had the target on the kickoff. That's a first for me. I'm not saying making it.
So I don't know if you guys knew that one, but they called targeting on this one guy.
I saw that play.
I saw it, and it was it's pretty close to targeting. I figured they were going to kick him, but it was like that 60-40 feel to it.
Any judgment on that, but the last one was just, it's hard to take that one. It really is on a couple levels. So first of all, I don't know how to coach our guys because we cover that in pregame with the officials each and every time about fair catch procedure, above the head wave. We also cover point to the ground for an errant to kick, which there were several of those today. So
that means they meet with these officials and discuss this. This is how our team reacts to special teams.
Something we've covered with every crew that comes through. Pretty standard procedure, I would imagine. And so it was interesting the final analysis of that play. And probably the most peculiar part to me is that, as I understand it, at least the initial replay was to find out if he was in or out of bounds, if Cooper stepped out of bounds, which clearly he didn't. And I appreciate the replay on that. That's fine. Do their homework, make sure they're correct on that. But then somehow we went from there to a whole different series of topics, and it's really hard to accept the explanation that we got. And I guess, I'm still not fuzzy. Maybe I slept through the meeting when they covered that, but I'm still not sure who makes the final decision. I know we go to Pittsburgh for analysis, and my theory there is more people get involved, probably the more screwed up things are. So if it was up to me, if anybody wanted my opinion, it ought to go back to the official who's on the field talking to the coaches. He should have the final say. That might clean some things up. It might not make it right, but it would be a little bit easier to understand. So, whoever the wizard is behind the curtain, it is what it is. So, again, credit our opponent. Their effort was good. I thought our guys.
He just sounds so heartbroken. It breaks my heart hearing
I just wish the coaches could get up there and say that fucking official lost us the game. And then instead of being there repercussions of him getting in trouble, like he should be able to say that guy's name. Fuck this official, this official, this official. You guys lost us the game.
And it sounds like
that's what they get. They should be able to say that.
It sounds like they put blame in Pittsburgh. Like, well, and they have to go by the call in Pittsburgh. So like it shifts responsibility from the refs on the field to an unknown person in Pittsburgh made that call. And Pittsburgh, I have a theory.
Vegas. The other thing is you started the replay to look for feet in bounds. And like he said, it shifted all the way to the far left. You're on the 1 yard line looking at feet, and it goes to the other end zone, getting into a fair catch. Like that, there should be no room for that. Like, that should have been so focused.
And if it was a fair
if it wasn't called fair catch on the field, it shouldn't have been called.
And if it was a fair catch, then where's the personal foul for hitting Cooper DeJean after he grabs the ball?
Yeah. True.
Where's that? And in the end, as much as it pains me to say it, we still only needed 25 yards, and we couldn't even do that. Mm-hmm. So this is a much more systemic. I mean, all the shift, and rightfully so, should be on that horrible call. And Pat McAfee's going to cover it because that's a big news item with his sidekick on that show. So it's going to be rubbed in relentlessly for the week. And, all last week, there was the USA Today article about how Iowa could possibly make college football playoff. And I think there was a call where, we don't want the worst offense in the Big Ten. So we'll call it back and we'll give them 25 yards. They could even, and rightfully, Iowa doesn't deserve it. But Iowa wins out. They're still Big Ten West champions. So
I don't even think they need to win out. I just think they should win more than Wisconsin.
Yeah. And Wisconsin takes on Ohio State, I think, next week.
Yeah, they're going to lose that.
Mm-hmm. So. And then, that puts Iowa and Minnesota. Minnesota takes on Ohio State this year. So, Minnesota owns the tiebreaker, but Minnesota is going to at least get one or two more losses. But here's the problem. Iowa's got to still go up against Rutgers, and they have to go up against Nebraska. And, as much as it pains me, Iowa's program is slightly better than Nebraska's. So, it's a toss one way or the other. Really.
Did I hear that right? Yeah. Did I hear that right? Okay. All right. I mean,
who won the last matchup?
Nebraska did.
Nebraska
did.
Yeah. In Kinnick.
In Kinnick.
Yeah, I guess we're giving it to Minnesota this year. That's our giveaway to Kinnick.
Yeah, and that was they get the pig, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you should have seen their stupid coach jumping up and down like a 12-year-old after the game, like a little child, like he had just won a Super Bowl. And then they said he was the last person on the field last night.
I saw that.
He stayed out there and just took it in.
Do you think he takes that Michigan State job? There's a lot of circles coming back to thinking
dear God, I hope he does, because he will get destroyed in the East. Absolutely walloped. He's a horrible coach, horrible time management. I mean, it's Iowa,
But if you watch that last series where, it was up to Deacon to make some reads, I think he really missed. Like you said, they needed 25 yards or whatever. They didn't need much, and he just kept trying to home run it. And I'm like, what are you doing, man? Take the 5, 6, chunk the thing down a little bit. You know, I mean, you had one timeout, but your fat ass can run up there and clock the ball. You know, I mean, quit trying to.
Why aren't we running a draw run play?
Yeah,
too. You know, like, and I get it. They were stacking 8, 9 on the box, but not that drive. You know, they knew what we needed to do, and I just, you know, it's. Yes, that horrible. That I mean, it was magical what Cooper DeJean did, you know, and then to have it called back and that pressure put on Deacon, who was already struggling all, you know, freaking fracking game. Yeah, it is what it is. But you know, I'm curious to see the Big Ten Conference response to this, you know, like, because it's trending, but it's still trending this morning on Twitter.
I don't
surprise me, you know, like,
why.
So, and it was,
but I don't think he said anything that welcomes huge fines.
No, but usually any negative reference to, you know, probably the Pittsburgh comment will get him fined. That's probably, you know,
which I think it's hilarious that you have these fucking dudes sitting behind a desk getting all upset about comments that a coach made because they made a mistake.
Yeah.
Well,
you know,
wonder,
like, my retaliation is I'm going to fine you money. So, you know,
well, and it all comes back to those people that he's talking about in Pittsburgh. Those people need to train their fucking refs a tad better and quit like, you know, the talk is, especially in the NFL, like, make these people full-time officials. So that's all they do. Don't let them be doctors and lawyers and car salesmen like they are in their free time. Get refs in there that do this 365 days a year. They know it. They know every little nuance of it.
And it doesn't matter, May, because he got overruled. They said the decision came from Pittsburgh.
Yeah.
They got overruled.
There should be repercussions, whether it's the refs on the field or whether it's the officials sitting behind a television.
How do you hold the person in Pittsburgh accountable?
You find them.
Who?
If that were an option, you find the individual that made that call. There's someone did it. Someone in Pittsburgh, whoever this Pittsburgh is, someone made a call. You know, if a ref calls a pass interference game at the end of the game, and that's the difference, and it was clearly not or clearly was, and they didn't call it, whatever it might be, you find that ref, and I guarantee they're going to watch games a little bit more closely.
Why is football the only sport where you don't, you know, there's no responsibility for the umpiring of a game? You know, like baseball, it comes down to the officials watching the review, the umpires. Basketball, the same thing, the person there. You know, it's only football where it goes to some mysterious place where no one is held accountable. And then
everyone's fingers are in the pot. And that's what I don't like about the Pittsburgh thing, because I'm not saying there's a bunch of immoral bastards sitting in Pittsburgh, but when you take it away from the field and you put it on a bunch of like suits or whatever in a Pittsburgh, you know, I hate to get conspiracy on it, but none of that I don't like that. You open too many doors and boxes when you take it away from the guys on the field. Let them call the wrong thing or the right thing on the field, and let them, if they blatantly mess it up on the field, like Shane said, hey, here's a $5,000 fine for blatantly missing that, or that holds them accountable on the field. Only time you really need to bring it back to a command center if there's a full-on brawl and you need all eyes picking and choose, you know, helping, you know, escalate something like that. On like that, no, that the 4 people or how many refs are now, you know, there, that's on them. You know what I mean? And then they eat it. That either that individual gets fined or that whole crew gets fined X amount. And then you know what? You don't get to ref the bowl game. Your team, off of making that, you get put on the back burner to try again next year. Hold some accountability to them, and then they'll start removing their heads from their asses.
Did you guys even want to see what the players had to say about that call? I don't know if I'm overdoing it here, but I did clip a little segment of Cooper DeJean talking about it.
Yeah, I want to hear Cooper.
Okay. Give it
yeah, we don't care about Deacon Hill.
Good answer from tomorrow.
Had a problem with that before. No, it didn't even look like a I didn't think I got it above my head at least. You know, I was just kind of like winding myself to turn to get the ball. You know.
It was a balance thing.
Yeah, it's tough. It's really tough. You know, especially the way it happened. But now we gotta move on. You know, we still got however many games left, so we gotta finish out the season the best we can.
Is that?
I did not personally. I was just trying to run, pick up the ball, I guess. Never call for fair catch with my left hand ever. I was kind of just like keeping my balance, I guess, trying to run to the ball, but it happens. Frustrating, but gotta move on.
Obviously, not the way we want things to go.
10 completions,
I want things to go.
over 100 yards. 2 fumbles,
3 lost.
Yeah.
and an interception.
But, we got to keep moving forward.
The official stat line had him at negative yards rushing.
Mm-hmm.
Again, total. It said you averaged
a lot of sacks.
0.4 yards per carry.
I can't remember how many sacks.
0.4. That's
0.4. 0.4 yards.
Yep.
About a foot. Yeah, foot.
It's not happy in Iowa land today. So I'd love to see what the Des Moines Register ran for an article, but it's just, it's not good. I can't imagine. God forbid we win the Big Ten West this year somehow, and they use that as an excuse to keep the team the way it is, because that's happened before. For where 2014 season, then we turn around 2015 and take on Michigan State. Offense still, we had CJ Beathard that year. That's that throw in the beginning intro is that championship game. So I would say this one hurt probably worse than that loss did. Pretty similar, but Minnesota is doesn't deserve Floyd. There are too many vegans in Minneapolis to even enjoy the meaty bacon that comes off of Floyd. So they can enjoy the referee win today. And, they can, try to hold it over our heads, I guess. But I think any reasonable Minnesotan knows deep down in their soul that it feels good when you pay off the refs. So little taste of Green Bay life over there. So,
yeah, it's got it. Yeah. The regardless of the call, not having the offense there has got to be one of the most frustrating things in football, to know that your defense does all this work. And
you're holding a team to 12 points isn't good enough.
That's wild.
Yeah. I mean, they scored 10 on us the week before.
It's going to drop our
so
defense.
Your defense held them just as well. Yeah.
Your defense coordinator needs to get the assistant coach of the year award already. Like, you don't even have to give it to anybody else.
Go share it with the special teams coordinator.
Yeah. Like, I heard it today on the Sirius radio. They were like, just give the special teams coordinator and the defense coordinator of Iowa, just send I think it's the Bryles, or I don't remember what it's called, but they were like, just send it to Iowa. Just, mail it to them right now, because what they're doing and not getting any kind of reciprocation on the other side, that's not fair to anybody. That's just,
and the fact that does not affect that defense. Like, they never give up. They never give up. And I've seen them, last year against Ohio State. That was it was more demoralizing than the Penn State loss this year, because Ohio State, it was turnover on the 50, on the 40, in the red zone. And that defense, I saw, for 3 quarters, put on one of the strongest holds against a top tier college team. So, Norm Parker's amazing, the defensive coordinator. And, it'll be interesting to see where this goes. If he's not gone by January, man, it's another year of this, and I just don't know how that's gonna go.
There's no way Brian comes back. There's no way.
I could see him getting demoted.
You can't have him. No, he can't even be allowed on campus anymore. Gone.
Well, and they're saying, I was watching guys that were there, and they were saying that fans are pretty rough during the game. Fire Brian was a chant often done.
Oh yeah,
So,
yeah.
like it's not pretty. I've never. The last time I saw Iowa fans throw something on the field was in 2005 when we lost in overtime to Michigan. It was the last time I've seen Hawkeye fans throw things at referees. So it's been, that just sort of gives you an idea how bad it was.
Yeah, that was a rough one. That was a rough one for Iowa.
Stop
All
talking.
right, well, we talked about Rutgers. We talked about Indiana, Wisconsin, Illinois, Northwestern, Nebraska, Minnesota, Iowa, Michigan, and Michigan State. There was one other game yesterday that probably yielded the biggest results. Penn State at Ohio State. Did you guys watch that game at all?
Yeah. Yep.
A little bit. Yep.
A little bit. Yeah.
Watch the
Great
whole thing.
defensive. Both teams played great defensively. I think I was most surprised about Penn State's offense because they had been so dominant through some of their first few games this season. Obviously, it just didn't translate to a larger school, or a larger team, a team with kind of like what May said after the Michigan-Nebraska game. Like they just looked larger than them out there, and they just looked like they couldn't do anything at all. Like after their first few drives, I was like, oh, Ohio State's going to win this game. Penn State can't do anything.
They couldn't cover Marvin Harrison either. Like,
no,
I mean,
not at all.
Well, I don't know if you watched how they covered him, but they put a guy about 15 yards out. And then as soon as Marvin Harrison would make his cut, that guy cut in with him. But they gave him a solid 15 yards to do whatever he wanted every play. And I'm just like, I don't understand why you don't double cover him, put a safety spy on him. I don't know what they're doing. And I mean, it's ballsy move, but it didn't work out for him. You got
to level bracket him. Each level he goes up, he's got to,
But Penn State, they love their man-to-man coverage, and it's just like, and sometimes you have to change. You have to play with your left hand. Like you have to change it up because there's a player special enough to burn you one-on-one. It's like teams that would do that to Randy Moss, in the NFL. Oh no, we'll single cover him. And he would, they'd stick with that all game long. And I saw Penn State stick with that all game long, and it did not work out well for them.
Yeah, I was most surprised. I know I mentioned this in yesterday's show. Just as a Michigan fan, it's easier to take on the giant that rather than have a new one come in and you don't know how good this team's going to be. And Penn State seemed, and just like you said earlier, it seems like every year that's like, oh, this is the year. And they looked better than they did last year, and then they underperformed in the first big game that they had. And as someone watching from the standpoint of a team that wants to get back to the college football playoffs, then I definitely was like, oh well, I'd rather, I only have to worry about one giant rather than two. And now obviously we could still lose that Penn State game. It's not off the table, but they looked more vulnerable today than they have all season. They arguably look like the most dominant Big Ten team up until yesterday. And then yesterday just showed that, they played a defense that I don't think is as good as ours, and they couldn't do anything. They couldn't do anything at all. So their defense is still solid though. Like they're still going to have a solid defense. I don't expect to put up a 50 burger or 40 on Penn State this season, but I think that their team is vulnerable, and I think that they showed that yesterday. And
how big do you think
about them?
How big do you think it was for Ohio State to have that nail biter against Notre Dame? I think that builds, we talk about easy schedules, and like logistically it makes sense, but there's something also to be said about winning a gritty football game that unites the team very early on. And, I'd be interested to see the success records of team that play those interconference games early on, and the team that wins them, how they do in their conference play, as a stat, because, Ohio State played gritty that game a lot. I mean, they just played grittier than Penn State. Penn State just looked like, once they didn't know how to do what they normally do, very broken, like very confused. And that's not a good sign in a team, that has had no competition up to that point. Now, Ohio State had that same expression when they were playing Notre Dame, but, somehow found a way to win that. And, I think, man, that Michigan-Ohio State game, I don't know if Michigan's got the grittiness. Where's Michigan's gritty win?
Well, we're still the team to beat. Ohio State.
Mhm.
Ohio State played last year against Notre Dame as well. I believe they lost it though.
Yep.
And then they came into, and they were still favored, or they still were ranked behind us. But I believe we were only either like a 1 point swing, or they might have been slightly favored because they was in Ohio State. So we also get to bring the series back home this season. So we're playing in the big house this year. And I still, and their teams, I still don't think their team is as good as it was last season. Their quarterback is definitely not as good as they were last season. They had Marvin Harrison Jr. last season as well. So I just don't think, I think that's going to be
their defense. Penn State's offense is not bad. Like Penn State's got a great offense. But they were stifled by Ohio State.
Ohio State's playmakers on defense came up when they needed to, you know what I mean? Like
right.
That JT, the defensive lineman, that they had their players come through, and you didn't see that on Penn State's side. Penn State, with their stars on both sides, they just, Ohio State, they came and they conquered. Penn State, you just didn't see it. You saw Aller look, not lost, but you saw who had the athletes and which athletes made the plays, right?
Mm-hmm.
I didn't see that with Penn State. So
yeah. And yeah. So yeah, and last year we did have one gritty win. If you remember the Illinois game
last year,
we had to beat them by a field goal at the end of the game, and that was the game where everyone's like, "Oh, Michigan's not as good as they are," and then we blew out Ohio State right after that.
Those gritty wins, it doesn't matter who you're playing.
I think they help
if
you.
It's a gritty win. It doesn't matter who you're playing. It's a bonding moment to the team on the field. Yeah. And right now everything's clicking. Everyone's happy. I want to see, because otherwise Michigan is going to do the exact same thing when they go into the college football playoffs, and they are going to get just embarrassed. So
yeah, well, I mean, last year, we had the gritty win, and we still lost our first game of the college football playoffs. The year before that, we finally overcame the Ohio State hump because we hadn't beaten them in a while, and then we just played a fucking Georgia team that wasn't going to lose to anybody. So, I think Georgia's a little down this year. This is going to be our best shot. There's only 4 teams. We can make the 4 teams. It's going to be a lot easier to win the 4-team one if you can make the 4 teams rather than this new series that's going to come, because you got to play a lot more playoff games. You have to win you have to win against a bunch of teams you've never played before, or you've never schemed against. You play Big Ten football a year, you know who you're playing. The second you play, you only have to play 1 or 2 opponents at the end of the season that are in different conferences. That's a lot different than playing 4 of them, and trying to schedule those or get those games broken down. We did have one gritty 25-point win this season against Bowling Green. I think that was our closest game so far. So
this is a snobbery.
Hey, we'll enjoy it while it lasts, Corey.
That's why they say, like, when the bigger playoff come in, they're hoping that it allows these good teams, these top teams in each conference, to schedule tougher opponents throughout the season, because you can have the affordability to have 2 losses and still make this playoff. With right now, you have to schedule women's colleges and functional universities to get W's, because you need to go undefeated. You have to, you can get 1 loss, and it better be in the fucking championship game of your conference, or you're going to have a hard time getting in. So,
I think you're starting to see a panic set in among the West. As far as who are going to be the relevant teams that come out of the West once the Big Ten switches to this style of conference play, that can compete, because we know Michigan and Ohio State are always going to be there, and then it's a fight for third. So
well, as of right now, Penn State, I would say, has a solid 3rd place.
I think there's teams on the West that have a chance to beat Penn State. For sure, it cycles. Penn State cycles just like the West does. They have really good teams, and then they have teams that are, their defense is porous, or, they cycle just like Big Ten West teams do. So a lot more. Ohio State and Michigan don't cycle. You know what I mean? Like, they are consistently there. Penn State probably cycles the least, but they definitely have 2 or 3 years where they're just off by a little bit. And, Iowa can beat them. Nebraska could beat them.
I just wonder when we get rid of conferences and we just do a big old hodgepodge, like if the teams from the West are going to adapt a little bit to match the teams, or is it still going to be that kind of stale? Hey, these teams over here are going to play this brand of football. These teams over here are going to play this brand of football. I'd like to see everyone kind of, come together in this melting pot.
Well,
because
you adjust to your conference, right?
Yeah.
So if you're playing USC, UCLA, or
Washington, Oregon.
Washington and Oregon, and they're consistently beating you, you're going to adapt to find a way to beat them.
Well,
Now, I don't think that's going to happen. I don't think that's going to happen. I think UCLA and Oregon are going to be the shine outs of who comes over here, and Washington, but USC is not going to do well.
Well, we're going to have Lincoln Riley football, baby.
It's not going to go well. I guarantee. I put it in the book. I would say 2 years in, he's out.
Utah should have been the team instead of USC that we took, because Utah screams Big Ten football.
Well, and we're still courting 2 teams because we want to be the Big 20.
Yeah,
so USC can't beat Utah.
No,
exactly.
They're 0-3 against Utah since Lincoln's got there.
I would say Wisconsin could beat Utah on a pretty 5 out of 10 games. I don't think Utah's
USC.
No, Utah. I could. Yeah, Wisconsin. I don't know if Wisconsin could beat USC. Maybe I think they'd have a shot at it this year. Don't you?
Can USC beat Penn State?
No.
USC doesn't look good. Caleb Williams is nice. He's elusive, but
you shut like one thing down, and they have nothing else. Especially against zone coverages. Everyone
has zero defense.
Mono.
Yeah. Zero defense on that.
I like what Utah's doing with their fucking walk-on third-string quarterback. And Winningham always gets them tough. Utah they're always impressive. I mean, they've been
if you
impressive and relative since Urban Meyer.
In the Rose Bowl 2 years ago, they almost beat Ohio State, and if it wasn't for their quarterback getting injured in that game, they probably would have won. So
yeah,
Utah is a tough team. I think they've been them and Oregon have been consistently the best teams in the Pac-12 over the last few years. And then obviously Washington has emerged as probably the front runner right now. But
yeah, Oregon will come in and have the most success of the new teams. They'll come in, and I won't say they'll hit the ground running, but it'll be probably better than the rest of it. I mean, UCLA has a top defense in the country this year, but every time I think UCLA and Chip Kelly, I think of the Oregon days, but I mean, Washington's going to have to replace they're all going to have to replace quarterbacks most likely.
Yeah, so they're all going to lose their quarterbacks. So we're going to have another year in the Big Ten where they're talking about who
can get the transfer, who can get the top freshman. Yep. Yeah.
So let's run through some other games. We ran through the Big Ten. There's some other top 25. So here in Colorado Springs, Air Force won. It was they are ranked 22nd. They beat Navy 17-6 yesterday. Oklahoma, 6th ranked Oklahoma, barely beat the University of Central Florida, only by 2 points.
Yeah.
Tennessee got dog walked. Yep, Tennessee couldn't win 2 in a row against Bama, so they probably won't win again for about 12 more years against Alabama.
Just pause on that one. On that one. I mean, I looked at that game and I thought, man, Tennessee is just taking it to Bama. And then
they blew a huge lead.
It was immediately like 2 touchdown lead for Bama. I'm like, oh no.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. It's like, I don't know what happened at halftime, but there was a speech that was given.
Yeah. And said, I'll burn this motherfucker to the ground if you kids don't get it together.
And Saban was mad too. Yeah. Like, I saw him throwing temper tantrums in the first half, and he was worked the fuck up. And I was just like, and then bam.
Yeah. Tennessee, that quarterback, you could just, it was one read. He couldn't. There were so many times that he had other wide receivers open on the other sideline or in the middle, and it was always just eyes went here. And I was like, man, like, you could be destroying Alabama. And the guy who was sitting next to JoJo, he was like, yeah, this is bad. Like,
were you watching it with Tennessee fans?
Oh yeah.
Oh, that makes it better. I bet that was sweet.
I was, because that's all they, just talking shit. But at the end of the night, I was like, well, one of our teams got one of these yesterday, and they were like, "Oh, it's Nebraska." I'm like, "Hey, we got one of these." So
Yeah, that was a funny one. Oregon beat up on Washington State. They've kind of been thrown by the wayside after they took their first
turnover
loss a few weeks
machine.
ago.
They fought hard. They fought hard that first half and then fell apart really quick.
Yeah.
Texas barely won against Houston.
Quinn Ewers might be out too for a while. He got hurt.
Houston. What was the final score on that game?
31-24, so a touchdown.
Yeah.
Florida State separated themselves in the ACC, so they beat Duke pretty handily, 38-20. But then also UNC got upset by Virginia yesterday.
Yeah,
27-31 in their home stadium. So Virginia was a 24-point underdog, and they won by 4 points. That's a 28-point swing. So Drake May is sitting in third place now, actually, in that conference behind Florida State. So let's see. Obviously, the Michigan State game, LSU embarrassed our armed servicemen. They beat Army 62-0.
Who schedules that? Like
I
this
don't
late
know,
in the season? I fucking
The SEC. The SEC.
Who at West Point was like, let's go to fucking Louisiana State in the middle of the season and play the
Well, everyone talks like, oh, the SEC is the best thing ever, and they're fucking undefeated. They're God's creation. Those sorry fucks play the weakest schedules out of everybody. They schedule the most non-conference matchups, and because I think the Big Ten plays the most conference games, out of the big boys, and everyone's like, oh, Georgia's undefeated. Well, Georgia played Austin P, St. Missouri Catholic Girls School. You know what I'm saying? All these schools that like LSU played Army. Are you fucking kidding me? Like, LSU gave Army enough money to buy 6 more destroyers to put in the ocean. You know what I mean? Like, it's, you know what I'm saying? Like, just to come down there and get dolloped by, no, thank you. You got me fucked up. You think that's enjoyable?
Yeah, 62-0 LSU. And those LSU fans stayed in that stadium the entire game to watch that entire beating.
Yeah.
UCLA destroyed Stanford. Washington underperformed against Arizona State. They
didn't score a touchdown.
No, 15-7. That's a very weird one for them. But they are still undefeated. They're the only undefeated team in the Pac-12. And then Utah obviously upsetting USC in their home stadium, and watching Lincoln Riley get upset was hilarious. So I don't know. Did you guys see the clip where he was on the sideline? So he was on the sideline. He had his little play call sheet thing, and he wraps it up, and his face turns redder than a tomato, and he's just fucking getting.
He was chewing on those refs the whole game. Caleb Williams was pouting on the sideline with his painted fingernails. Like, it was just the body language during that whole game. Like, USC, it doesn't look like they're a football team. It looks like it's.
Does it give you Frost?
And this was
it's just weird. It gives me like it's not a team thing.
This is a quarterback that thinks he wants ownership.
Yeah,
and the team drafts him. 0 touchdowns yesterday in your home stadium, and you want ownership, and then you also expect to come to the Big Ten. Well, he's up in the air because he said he might stay in college for another year. But
I hope he does come to college for another year, because he's not going pro this year. No one.
He makes too much money. He'll make more money.
He's still projected number 1 if he goes pro. So,
and he'll make more money in college than he would with his rookie contract.
So who does USC have to play the rest of the year, I guess?
Let's see here. So USC 6-2.
I think they got Washington.
At Cal. That'll be an easy win. Cal's not very good. And then they play Washington at home. Then they play at Oregon and versus UCLA.
You think he'll still be a number 1 draft after he gets owned by those teams? I don't think so.
A lot of people are asking him to sit the rest of the year out because they can't win the Pac-12. They're not going to go to the playoff. Like,
I think Bo Nix is a better quarterback.
Yeah, I like Bo Nix.
I think Bo Nix is better at Oregon, and he unfortunately has not nearly any draft hype around him at all.
I still think he could go first round, but
I just compared to
Caleb.
Williams.
Yeah.
You don't think he
draft hype is nothing?
I mean, there's a strong Heisman push. Yeah, there's a strong Heisman push for Bo Nix right now. I think that's warranted. He looks incredible.
He's got what, 56? I think I saw 56 starts as a quarterback. Like that's the record.
Quite a bit. Yeah, that's quite
He
a bit.
runs that like a pro offense. Like he's just very comfortable in that pocket.
All right, let's see here. So who do you guys think is leading yards among quarterbacks? If you had to pick a quarterback from a team, who do you think is leading the yards?
I have to give me a list of a couple teams here.
Like passing yards?
Passing yards, yep. It's a Pac-12 team. I'll tell you
I'd
that.
either go Penix or Shador.
There's 3 Pac-12 teams in the top 5. Penix is number 1. He's got 2,576 yards. Shador is number 4 with 2,420 yards, and then Caleb Williams is number 5, 2,227. Leading the touchdown race right now, it's Jaden Daniels for LSU. He's got 25 passing touchdowns, and he's also number 2 in yards, 2,573. So the Jaden Daniels might actually be our Heisman frontrunner right now, based off of the overwhelming amount of touchdowns he has. He's only got 3 interceptions compared to a lot of these guys.
What's LSU's record though?
6-2, I believe.
Yeah. And they're saying that he's having a better year than Joe Burrow had when they won the national championship.
And you have to count that Army game.
Yeah,
that's the thing. Like, I don't think you can. When's the last time they've given the Heisman to a 2-loss?
Yesterday against Army, he threw 279 yards, 3 touchdowns.
I guess USC, they gave it to their quarterback. Was it last year?
Yeah. So, and then LSU 6-2 for the rest of this remainder of the season. Their next game is at Alabama. Then they play Florida. Then they play Georgia State. So there's your cupcake game there, man. And then they play against Texas A&M. That's crazy that you played Georgia State your second to last game before rival week. Georgia State. And their first games, they played Grambling, Army. Yeah, they have.
Well, and you're starting to see like Bama isn't the powerhouse they're going to be, and I think they won't ever recover either. I think Texas looks strong. I think there's
Oklahoma looks good too.
Oklahoma looks
beat
good.
Texas, yeah.
And so I think that once you start to see, and we've been saying this for years, that the SEC is 4 or 5 good teams, one really great team each year. And then the rest is trash. Their schedule is trash, but their contract with ESPN has allowed them to maintain that trash schedule and keep ranked. But as soon as that changes to this, and quality of wins for this, was it going to be 16 teams?
12.
Or 12.
16.
Or is it 16?
16 for the SEC?
No, the new playoff next year.
Playoff, yeah. I thought you meant SECs. Yeah, never mind.
This who you played is going to come into, that's going to be a huge deal. So, I don't know. SEC is a shell.
It's all who makes the most money. Well, it's where's your money going to come from your soap opera?
Yeah,
it's usually the SEC. How'd our picks turn out? Did you calculate those?
I haven't calculated the total yet. I just hadn't got to it. I was pretty busy with work yesterday. But
where does Penn State fall in your rankings?
After losing yesterday?
Yeah.
So if I'm looking at the rankings here, right? So Georgia and Michigan are going to maintain 1 and 2. I was thinking about putting Ohio State at number 2. They just didn't have enough of a dominant win for me. I think what I said yesterday was they would have had to win by 14.
Really? Even though
I like Florida State at 3,
jump them,
challenging for 2.
So yeah, I'll probably keep them there. I'm not going to punish those teams for winning their games. So I'll keep Georgia, Michigan, Ohio State, Florida State, which will actually coincide with the rankings that the AP poll has right now. Just because all those teams lost, then I'll have a real conversation. I might move Oklahoma over Washington. Just because Washington's game against Arizona State yesterday was not that great, that I may actually punish them for losing. So I'll probably put Oklahoma at 5, Washington 6. Then you have Penn State, and every other team below Penn State at that point is going to be teams with losses. They're all going to be 1-loss teams. I'll probably put Oregon above them. I think Oregon losing away to Washington by 3 points is a better loss than Penn State losing at home by 8.
Yep.
So that's
State was at Ohio, weren't they?
Oh, were they? Okay, so either way, losing that 8, not being able to score. So I'll probably have Oregon there, and then I'll probably have a real conversation between Texas and Penn State, and that's probably going to be my next 2 teams down. I'll be dropping North Carolina quite a bit. You can't lose to a 24-point underdog at home. That's ridiculous. So they're going to drop quite a bit. Utah will move up quite a bit, I think. I'll have Utah move up a little bit. And then at that point, you're kind of messing with Ole Miss won a good game. Alabama, you still have to keep them in there. Oregon State, and then those are kind of the teams that are going to fill out the rest of the top 10. After that, there's really, not too much I can play with there. So we'll have to look at quite a few of the rankings. Maybe I'll just put Air Force at like 11.
Should.
Absolutely not.
It'd be very patriotic of you.
Yeah, patriotic. Yeah. But yeah, that's about it. That's all I have for today. Well, I'll calculate the rankings. I'll post it on Twitter here, and after I take a shower and get ready for the day, and then and I'll send it to you guys.
All right, fellas. Well, have a good rest of your week.
Yeah, you too.
Showtime Sunday or Saturday morning next week. Any big games we're looking forward to next week?
No.
You see my fair catch.
Trying to break the day. Martinez up the sideline. Still running. Look out. Taylor Martinez. What a run. He's got away. Martinez. Wow. Taylor Martinez. Touchdown. Huskers. Play fake. Beckert sets up deep in the pocket. Goes down the field for Smith.
Has some time. Lofting. Right corner of the end zone.